Hello and welcome to Spa again. So I've been doing a few rounds of Spa this week, not as many as I would have wanted because I've been sick. So that's also the reason that I haven't put out that many videos. It's been a pretty miserable week, to be honest. And it's reflected in my races too. I did get a few in after I first got better, but I think since I was so tired and yeah, it didn't go very well. Not the best races either, so hence the low output. Also explains to myself at least, why I haven't broken the 120 2 minutes 20 threshold on my personal best on Spa. But anyway, so I joined this session yesterday, feeling all better. The session had been running for 1 minute in qualifying, so there was plenty of time to go. So I set out on my outlap, and since a minute has passed, all the early birds had already left the paddock by the time I joined. So I had a very nice gap to jump into, to slot into, and to do my qualifying lap. My outlap was fine, nothing special. Then the first lap, I went a bit too ambitious, so I had hit track limits. So even though you can see I had a 2:22.7, which wasn't too special by itself, it didn't count as my best lap, just as the last lap, as you can see at the top left, since I hit those track limits, so it doesn't count for quali. So I set out again, and I figured I had about 3 laps left on this tank of gas. So I figured I'd do one with quite a lot of lifting. Still try to minimize, of course, but just be on the safe side with track limits for a banker lap, which is this one. And then the idea is that if that one came in safe, I could push a bit harder on the next one, and then hopefully on the third one, if I had improved a bit again, I could push full out and do no lifts in the full out throttle zones like Eau Rouge, Radillon, Stavelot, and Blanchimont. So yeah, this is supposed to be another banker lap, and so far so good. Come across the finish line, and I hit the 2:22.9. Not fantastic, but it'll do to get me out of the drags of people that don't put down any lap at all. I then went ahead with the plan. I tried to do a few more quali laps, but I kept hitting track limits. I suppose I'm a bit out of practice with the week I've had. So off we went to the start of the race, and I start only P16, so not great. It's a 26 person grid, so definitely not that good. I considered dropping all the way to the back and then fighting from there, but this session had a safety rating of 70 minimum, so I figured I should be safe enough even in the middle of the pack, hopefully, to survive the start and get away. So in front of me we see De Vreugd had a better start than me and cuts across. I had to hold back a little. And then here on my radar you see a guy drop super fast to the right. I didn't notice this in the race, but if we take their perspective, it's Van Butzelen. So first they get overtaken by De Vreugd, and then I'm on their left, and they come quite far to the left, I think, further than necessary. But maybe I was a bit further to the right than necessary as well. Let's see it from behind, from the perspective of a rebus. So yeah, here we go. I think I was holding a line that was okay, and it was more on Van Butzelen, but yeah, I think it's mostly just a racing incident, first corner, lap 1. So I feel a bit bad for them, but nothing done, we have to carry on. At this time I'm already P11, so I think not everyone started, and then I overtook some people at the start. We saw someone briefly on the outside crashed. I thought about making a move on Zive Lion. I won't try to pronounce that name again, but in any case I backed out of it because I figured it's too early in the race. I don't know how they drive, and it's in any case a risky move to try and overtake in the second part of Le Combe. I do see MF, the yellow BMW, sniffing at the rear. I block it off going into Jackie X because similarly I don't fancy getting made a move on in that corner. And I just try to stick with the pack ahead without leaving too big of a gap on the inside or outside it's Lime Soul for them to slot into. So yeah, they're again right behind. I figure, okay, Defiant 2, I have to run out wide and make sure they don't try to come on the inside into campus. So successfully defended there. Still we carry on. By now I'm P10, there was someone else crashed out somewhere on the side. I kind of missed it now in the replay, but there was a lot of that happening or about to happen still, so yeah, not that interesting overtakes anyway. So Stavlo, I think I was almost flat out. Here too. Yeah, so I stayed flat out in Blanchimont to not give Limesoul a chance. Also, I mounted overtake on whoever it was, maybe the name I can pronounce, and then it's utter chaos. Especially the radar at the top is quite funny. So I made a move on the guy right in front of me. Limesoul made a move at the same time on me, so we're going 3 wide into the bus stop chicane. Limesoul runs too deep. They mostly make the corner, or they do make the corner, but there was no way they could have left space on the outside, so I don't think that move was entirely on, but they get away with it safely. So yeah, it's okay, I guess. This did put me in a difficult spot, so here we see it from further behind, the view of Grubel. So Limesoul comes through, I then run into the guy to my left, and then Grubel comes through, hits me, and then gets on the gas right after hitting me, which, yeah, that's not very cool. So they bump me again and I'm left stranded a bit. Finally, a perspective of a rebus. He goes too deep into the bus stop, but it works out super well for them because they pretty much skip the chicane and they skip all the chaos and they worm their way through. So by this time I'm back on my way myself. I slot in behind this rebus guy. So there you go. We're back to the same plan. At this point I'm P14. I'm still up 2 spots from the start, so yeah, it's kind of whatever. But yeah, back on our way. The gap behind is about 3 seconds. So more people crashing out on the right there. And the gap in front is only about 1.5 seconds, so my attention is firmly aimed at the front. The gap behind even grows, so I think they may have been caught up in the kerfuffle out of Radion. So yeah, I'm not paying too much attention to that, more looking in front. So Rebus is perhaps gonna make a move on MF. And in front of those two we see that Grubel is there, the guy that hit me twice in the second part of the bus stop chicane. With the mess in Radion, I'm now P11, and again some people stranded on the right and on the left, coming out of Jackie X, and at this point I'm P9, so all in all going quite well. I took a couple bumps, but I don't think I had damage, or if I did it wasn't serious damage anyway. So yeah. De Vreugd also seems to have been caught up into the mess at Jackie X. So they lost some time and they drop behind MF and Rebus, but they stay out in front of me. So he will be my first target for overtake potentially. Coming into Stavlo, I try to not lift, but I don't get there at all. It's a very big lift. I fully let go of the throttle. It's not too long, and it seems like in front of me the same happens, so I'm not falling behind too much. But yeah, it is what it is. I'm definitely too far behind going into the bus stop chicane to go for a move. But then I navigate the chicane much better than De Vreugd in front of me. So I'm quite close behind, and I am considering if I could go for a dive bomb here. It would be from very far behind, so instead I just throw a dummy. I make a small move to the inside, but then immediately back out of it again. Just putting a bit of pressure on De Vreugd, I was thinking. So now we head up again to Eau Rouge and Radion, and I'm thinking here, okay, go big or go home, try not to lift. I do have a small lift, but it is very small, and De Vreugd in front of me has a bigger one. So now I'm slipstreaming heavily behind. I'm very close behind, less than half a second, and they leave it open on the outside going into Lecombe 1. So I just take that position, thank you very much. I need to keep it tight here because they stuck to my outside at first, but they had a slide as well, I believe. So even though I was sliding a bit into Lecombe 2 and being very precious on the gas, trying to make sure I don't hit them on the outside of Lecombe 2. Yeah, we will see it again from their perspective. So you can see in their virtual or their rear view camera that I'm approaching quite quickly. I think to be more defensive, they should have been a bit more on the left to not leave a car's width on the outside, but also to make it very tight to go on the inside. Anyway, they slide a bit on the curb, and then they still try to stick it out, but then they see me being a bit skittish, and they think better of it, even though I did leave the space for them, so they could have stuck it out. Back to my view, we see MF being spun out. I'm not sure if there was contact with Rebus, but anyway, another position came for me, so by now I'm P7. I guess I must have missed someone else spinning out, but it wasn't interesting at least then. The Vreugd still very close behind, sniffing at the rear, but nothing doing. Like, just taking a bit more defensive lines and keeping them behind. Again, they come super close and bam, they ram me going into Le Fagny. I managed the contact very well. I was very pleased with myself in this moment because they really outbrake themselves on the brakes very late. And yeah, tag me from behind, but I hold it well. And at this point, maybe they're a bit rattled, I'm not sure, but I start pulling a bit of a gap, so now already a second ahead. Very marginal lift in Stavelot, and they immediately fall behind, so I think they had a much bigger lift there. It's possible that they had some damage, I'm not sure, from the contact, but yeah, anyway, I'm gapping them now, so with them disappearing in my rear view mirror, I'm again looking in front at Rebus, who's still ahead of me in P5, and they go very deep into the bus stop chicane. And to make matters worse for them, they keep it quite tight on the exit. I don't know why they don't use more space there, but it makes that I can catch up even a bit more. So you can see my lap time, 2:23.4, is actually pretty good considering how the lap went. I made an overtake on the Vreugd in Lecombe. I had to be careful on the throttle there. And then we had the contact in Le Fagny, and I still get into the 2:23, so I was quite happy with that. And actually matching the lap time of Rebus in front. So, seems like definitely a target that's possible to hit an overtake on. I think into Orange Gradient, I actually didn't look at the lift this time, but I seem to have come a bit closer. Yeah, my corner here in Malmedy wasn't all that great, missed the apex quite a lot, but I gained time on them. And then in Brussels, I noticed that they run very wide on entry. They mostly make up for it on the exits. They do hit the second part of the double apex, so I came a bit closer there. But then in Jackie X, I myself missed the apex by a mile, so again I fall a bit behind. So there's some ebb and flow there. I'm still within the 1.5 to 1 second time frame or gap behind, so nothing gained, nothing lost pretty much so far. Le Fagny, they're a bit pedestrian through it. They don't keep up the best minimum speed, I think, so I come a bit closer again. They missed the apex here on Campus, so again a little gained. And then here I have quite a long lift in Stavelot, but it's very shallow, so I don't lose too much time. And I'm trailing by about 1 second now, heading to Blanchimont. A small lift there for myself, so the gap is maintained. Here into the bus stop they go super deep again, and then they have the even worse exit than the last lap. So they go very deep, they make their second corner super tight because of it, and then they don't use the space on the exit, so yeah, they have a very slow exit compared to mine, and I managed to overtake. I immediately go on defensive, so I went to the outside briefly, but then in the braking zone I'm already aiming for the apex, trying to close the door on the inside because I figured they might go for it. They didn't though, and as a result they have a better run on Blanchimont. Sorry, on Rouge and Radio. I'm very nervous about this, going there too wide. So I was checking my right side all the time, but they back out of it and I don't manage to keep it within the track limits. So I hand the position back. I do a big lift after Hadion because yeah, this is basically the Nico Mill situation in reverse from a few videos ago, and I don't want to gain a spot in that manner. So I hand the position back and I figure I'll just try again, perhaps next lap around. Maybe I was a bit too lenient on giving the position back because I fell behind by about a second. Could have lifted a little less, especially since it was so early on the straight and there was plenty of time to make it happen. But in Bruxelles they run very deep again and I make up a bit of the lost time already. Also in Pouhon, the first part of the corner they don't hit the first apex. Also not really the second apex, but it was closer. So yeah, gaining a bit more time. I'm approaching the half a second mark. They do keep up their speed better in Le Fagne and they hit their apex nicely on Campus. So now they increase the gap again to about 1 second. And I believe they ran a bit wide on Stavlo. Might be that they had a small lift there. I think I had like a small double lift myself. So they run a bit away with it again to about 1.5 seconds, but they missed the apex on Blanchimont and I have to imagine they lifted because I'm gaining time with it. And again they make the same mistake in the bus stop, maybe even worse than last time. They run super deep and they mount the curb on the second turn. They make it super tight again, so basically the same scenario, and I go for the overtake here. I am able to pull to the left much faster, but again I go on the defensive and they keep it nice and wide on the entry. So I lose a bit of time there, but then I think their corner wasn't all that pretty, so they lose even more time and I seem to have stuck the landing on this overtake now. And I immediately pull a gap of about 7/10 of a second, 6/10, which is a pretty important threshold because I've recently learned that the threshold for getting a good slipstream is about 0.6 seconds. So my goal now is to go beyond that gap. If we look at it from their side here on the Camel Straight, this is the defensive move I meant earlier, so I don't leave a full car's width on the outside. I think they were either trying to keep the slipstream and moving a bit to the middle for that, or considering diving on the inside, but they didn't, because I think in any case I made the angle on the inside too tight for them to actually go for it. So yeah, they did come closer again. I guess they had a better Eau Rouge Radion, and then the resulting slipstream aided them even more to come close. In front of us we see that Martinez, who was about 10 seconds up the road at least, seems to have a big moment. And they are back on their way, but maybe they had damage because they spin out in Pouhon and they are gone. This gives me P4 and Rebus behind P5, and our battle continues. I think a podium spot is out of the question here, with how far ahead the top 3 is, notably Grubel from before. But that's okay, I'm super happy to make it to P4 or maybe P5 if I don't keep a position. I have a big moment in Campus. I managed to defend in Stavelo, although my exit there wasn't great and Rebus comes super close behind. I don't think there was contact, but it was really close and they have to back out, and that opens a gap for me. So the reason that this happened is that I thought they were diving on the inside and I was trying to be safe, and I didn't go for the apex myself in Stavelo, which meant that my exit speed was a lot slower. And I guess for them it came as a surprise, so that's why they suddenly approached so fast, because they weren't actually going for the move. But yeah, In the bus stop chicane, they come a bit closer again in the first part, but then on exit again, they make it very, very tight for themselves. They're still quite close, even though they didn't manage an overtake. So I'm making the same defensive move again, going to the inside and shutting the door immediately, going into La Source. And again, they weren't actually going for the move. So the result is that I'm making an unnecessary defensive move, slowing me down because my corner then is a lot tighter. So in Radion, again, I try to not go or try to lift as little as possible. I want to open this gap to more than 0.6 seconds if possible. I almost manage it, but not quite. And then here, I don't know what happened with their braking, but they came super close and they had to back out of it. We can look at it from their perspective again. So, yeah, here comes Rouge Radion. I didn't have that big of a lift. They seem to have quite a bit bigger lift, so they were very close behind and they lose a bit of ground. And then I'm trying to break the toe. As you will see, I'll start weaving a bit. So moving right, I see they follow me, I move back left. No need to be defensive here, I think they're too far behind. But they are still very late on the brakes, and I think they would have maybe barely made Lecombe, but not in a very fast way. And since I was making it cleanly, they have to back out and they go off track. Now the way the layout of the corner works is that they don't really fall too far behind. So yeah, back to my perspective, and they're still within the half a second gap. And now I'm starting to think, okay, actually, I go very wide here on the apex of Jackie X. But so my thought at this point was that I've been too defensive, preemptively defending when it's really not needed. And it's costing me time, and it's making it so that I'm not opening a gap and making the defense unnecessary as a whole. So I figure now I'll try just driving cleaner lines, not look too much behind, but try to more go into hot lap mode, because I do feel from everything I've seen that I am a bit faster than Rebus if I just try to maximize or minimize my lap times. So yeah, I try to not lift too much in Stavolo, don't quite manage it, but in Campus and Stavolo, otherwise my lines were pretty clean. And now I have a gap of 0.7 behind, so that's good because the section behind is pretty much flat out. I get another warning for track limits. I believe it's the second one. I had one on the first lap as well when De Vreugd was very close behind and I was trying to not let him pass there. But 2 is fine, 3 is still fine, although getting a bit tight. So at 2 I want to be a bit safer and maybe lift a little more, which doesn't work with my current plan, but yeah, it is what it is. I don't make the defensive move into La Source and it pays off dividends, because immediately my delta compared to my best lap is half a second up. And my best lap was already 221.8, which I'm pretty happy about in race pace. Here in Blanchimont, small lift, nothing dramatic, and the gap is now solidly opened up to 1.2 seconds. So now it's a matter of keeping this gap as it is or even increasing it more. I'm a bit tentative here into Lecombe. My minimum speed is not that high and immediately they close it up. I noticed and I'm a bit too trigger happy on the throttle. So I have a bit of a slide into the second part and go into Malmedy. But I hold it and yeah, I didn't lose too much ground or gave even an opportunity for an actual overtake. Again, I go super wide compared in Jackie X, don't manage to hit the apex at all. Not good, of course, and giving them a bit of a chance to stick behind a slipstream. So, all of these little mistakes really showing that I was feeling the pressure behind. I was just constantly driving in my mirrors. My plan was maybe to drive clean lines, but it's just so difficult when you have to gauge the whole time how close are they behind, do I need to defend. Yeah. Still though, that plan hasn't changed, so trying to drive clean lines. A big lift in Stavolo, but in my mirrors I noticed that they went very, very wide. So I have to think that they had a much worse Stavolo than me. And again, the gap is open to 0.7 with Blanchimont and then the bus stop chicane coming up. So that's good news for me because I expect them to lose more time in the bus stop chicane.
Yellow flag in sector 2.
Very clean chicane by myself, if I may say so. But I noticed that they seem to have learned from their mistakes mostly, although their exit was still leaving a lot of space on the outside, at least the middle of the corner for them. They didn't go that deep as before. I refrained from making the defensive move. They're definitely too far behind to try anything there. And I think their La Source wasn't all that great either, so they've fallen a bit more behind now at the 1 second mark. I'll try not to lift in Radion, but I have to make a small lift to not get another track limits. Maybe lift it a bit more than necessary, but in any case the gap opens up even more to 1.5 seconds roundabout. I figure I have to be more aggressive on the entry into Le Combe, and so I am. Keep up my minimum speed more. And it pays off again because I already had this about half a second on the delta, I believe, or approaching it at least, and this time I don't lose that improvement on the delta, unlike the previous time around when I had the same improvement after the Camel Straight. Rebus still seems to be doing better in that section at the moment, so they did close the gap a bit to about 1 second. Here, shortly after or in the braking zones, it's not very representative. The timesheet always closes up. So even though it's showing now half a second, it's not representative. Although looking in my mirrors, yeah, they are actually quite close. But they run very wide there in Campus. And then Blanchimont, I run wide. And there it is, the final warning for track limits. So I can't get any more track limits or I will get a penalty. Luckily there's only one real place where I could get it, which is here in Blanchimont, because we're on the final lap of the race. So I just have to keep it together now in the bus stop chicane, and I almost mess it up. I touched the grass and my braking is compromised. But even if they would have been close enough to try something, I could have just parked it on the apex and been fine. So I bring it on in P4 after a very tense race. I park up the car and I start typing at Rebus saying, "Thanks for the race, this was super fun. I've really felt the pressure after the overtake." To which he replied, "Ha ha ha, I bet." And also told me a good race. So yeah, super nice. Happy to be back with a good race.